If you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you probably know by now that I'm a big fan of the Gotham TV show. And if you're not that type of viewer and just happen to stumble upon this video, the biggest video on my channel is called Why You Should Watch Gotham, and it's how most people find my channel to this day. The reason why this information is relevant and why I'm making this specific video is because of an image that I stumbled upon on Twitter. That image, of course, is this one. When it comes to discussing bringing back actors to reprise beloved roles or bringing them into a cinematic universe in some way, it's always fun and makes for a good time. As someone whose biggest piece of content is about Gotham, I almost feel like I have to talk about this hypothetical idea. Not doing so would be a disservice to the Gotham show, the Gotham fanbase, and to DCEU, or as we now call it, DCU fans. Why? It's because a lot of people might not know the strengths and shortcomings of both David Mazouz and Cameron Monaghan's performances in Gotham. Naturally, this brings us to the question at hand. Should DC Studios have them reprise their roles if they're seeking a younger Bruce Wayne and a younger Joker for the new DC Cinematic Universe? Shockingly enough, there is a compelling argument for DC Studios to at least entertain the idea of bringing back Cameron Monaghan, who notably played Gotham's iteration of the Joker. Before you ask, yes, if you look it up, you will notice that Cameron officially played the characters Jeremiah and Jerome Velasca, not the Joker. You'll also notice that the designs for his characters aren't entirely identical to the Joker we know and love. For what it's worth, yes, that character still very much is the Joker. I know, the changes might make you think otherwise, but I promise you that he played Gotham's Joker. If you're curious about the changes, there is a backstory behind that. For those that are curious, the backstory is that Warner Brothers wouldn't allow them to make a completely identical Joker. They wanted to limit Joker's name and his iconic design to their blockbuster movies. That's why Gotham couldn't specifically give Cameron the Joker name or give his character the iconic look either. With that small yet notable clarification out of the way, you're probably wondering what the compelling argument is for wanting DC Studios to at least entertain the idea of bringing back Cameron to play the DCU's Joker. You see, whether people want to admit it or not, Cameron's take on the Joker character is legitimately incredible. Admittedly though, it does take quite a bit for his character to become the Joker we all think of when we discuss the Joker. That, of course, is an entertaining, likable menace to society that absolutely adores wreaking absolute havoc throughout Gotham and wants to kill Bruce Wayne. However, when you finally get to that point where Cameron is that character, it's absolutely worth the wait, and you'd understand why Gotham fans would be a fan of the idea of Cameron potentially returning as the DCU's official Joker. Throughout his time on Gotham, you can tell that Cameron respected the role of the Joker, which, to me, is one of the most important things you can ask of an actor when casting such an iconic role.
He's the most famous comic book villain of all time, bar none. I mean, you know, you could go almost anywhere in the world. People are gonna know who Batman and the Joker are.
There's never a moment where you feel like Cameron isn't putting 110% into this role once he becomes the Joker in Gotham. He's so good that 9 out of 10 times he will steal the spotlight and take up the entire scene that he's in just because of how much effort, love, and passion he put into his Joker. His iteration of the Joker feels very in tune with what you'd expect out of the Joker in general. He's chaotic enough to utterly and destructively twist and turn Gotham, and even if a plan fails, he somehow comes back with yet another over-the-top plan. He's scary enough to the point where almost everyone in Gotham, outside of Jim Gordon, Alfred, Harvey, and Bruce, is afraid of Jerome and wants to take him down so they can rule Gotham instead. He's entertaining enough that his ridiculous jokes will make you laugh even if you didn't expect to. Most importantly, Cameron Monaghan nails the Joker laugh. It's not a terrible ripoff or impersonation of what's been done before. It's inspired by the likes of Mark Hamill, but at the same time, Cameron toys with a creative idea, which he explains and showcases in the following clips.
The voice in the laugh has changed. I'm kind of playing with the idea that he was stabbed in the throat, and so it would in some way change who he is.
Let it out! That's it!
Now, what I appreciate the most about Cameron's take on the Joker is that he nails the being the thorn in everybody's side aspect. Jerome doesn't care at all. He'll make a plan, and if that plan fails, he'll do another plan that's bigger and better, or even more annoying than the last one. He doesn't care if Gotham gets destroyed because at the end of the day, it causes so many villains to be against Jerome. They want to rule Gotham, and he consistently gets in the way of that. This is because he strives off of being loud and obnoxious. He loves annoying people like Jim Gordon because it allows him to play mind games. He loves annoying Bruce Wayne because it'll anger him and get Bruce to want to fight Jerome, or at least go toe-to-toe with him, and if that fails, he manages to get under Alfred's skin, who will chirp back at him. It's hilarious, it's funny, it's entertaining, and most importantly, it's captivating. That's why Cameron Monaghan is worthy of being the DCU's new Joker. If he can do all of this on a TV show that doesn't have the biggest budget, the best visual effects, the best writing, or even the best creative direction, imagine what he could do with those things on a bigger scale. Imagine how good Cameron would be on a scale that's so big that it'd allow him to have his hands on better visual effects, costumes, cinematography, makeup, and better writing. He'd be a literal star. He'd probably be the casting that people wouldn't stop talking about. If you ask me, he'd easily be a contender for the best modern live-action Joker in a lot of people's eyes. In this day and age where we have Joaquin Phoenix doing a different take on the Joker and Barry Keoghan in the Batverse, Cameron Monaghan would be leagues ahead in terms of being everybody's favorite ongoing live-action Joker. As for David Mazouz, I have less of an interest in seeing him come back as Bruce Wayne, and honestly, I'd like to think my reasoning is understandable. As much as I respect David's iteration of Bruce Wayne, his take on Bruce Wayne sort of plateaued for me toward the latter half of Gotham. This is primarily because, for me, David's take on Bruce is the most interesting when David was at his youngest age. You see, the most interesting thing about Gotham is that the show covers a part of Bruce Wayne's life that we typically never get to see in live action. That part is Bruce's adolescence. Gotham's deliberate decision to begin its universe right after Bruce's parents die pays off because it allows the show to answer multiple curiosities that you may not know you've had. How does the death of his parents immediately affect him? How does Bruce form his relationships with characters we know and love, such as Selina Kyle, Alfred Pennyworth, and Commissioner Jim Gordon? What impacts Bruce enough to allow him to form his well-known habits, such as the way he speaks, the way he approaches certain situations, the way he uses his moral compass, or even the way he presents himself in front of people, such as the board of Wayne Enterprises? The answers to these questions are genuinely compelling because of the star of this show, David Mazouz. At least we can say that about the earlier seasons because Ben McKenzie, who plays Jim Gordon, only gets better as the show goes on. David's greatest achievement in Gotham is the transformation of Bruce Wayne that he displays from episode 1 of Gotham to Gotham's finale. This legitimately should neither go understated nor be underappreciated. Bruce Wayne understandably starts off as a young, playful, energetic, and naive boy who doesn't understand how the world works, which is why he's often put into the position of being filled with a ton of fear. He fears the world after going through such a traumatic event that pretty much defines the rest of his life. However, as Gotham progresses and as Bruce begins to learn not only how Gotham City works, but begins to interact with the many characters of Gotham as well, you begin to see how Gotham shapes Bruce Wayne. A young boy once filled with fear and trauma begins to use a traumatic event to spark a fire inside him, a fire that pushes Bruce to solve his parents' murder, to learn how to run Wayne Enterprise, to learn how to work with Jim Gordon for the sake of Gotham, and eventually learn how to become the hero that Gotham needs. As we see that journey through, we begin to realize that David Mazouz purposely builds upon Bruce's mannerisms from one season to another to mold Bruce Wayne as a character. To give you a better understanding, I'm going to show you two identical moments from two different seasons in Gotham. These two moments are Bruce addressing the board of Wayne Enterprises. The first clip is from season 1, and the second clip is from season 3. Enjoy!
I'm so sorry if you've been alarmed or upset by these shocking stories and rumors you've been exposed to.
These are much more than rumors. While trapped in Indian Hill, I was led to believe an unnamed group had taken control of my company. And it was they who hired Hugo Strange.
Do you understand the difference between the two clips? I know a lot of people are gonna make jokes about it being puberty, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that in the first clip, Bruce has no respect from the board. They're basically mocking him and only paying attention to him because they have to. He has no power in the conversation, and the way he speaks to the board does almost nothing for him. That's natural because of how young he is. Bruce has yet to learn about how to hold these types of conversations, let alone do the work to be in a position of power beforehand, so that if someone calls him out, he can immediately fire back with a calm and powerful display. In the second clip, however, you can already tell how much David Mazouz built Bruce and his mannerisms up from season 1 to season 3 without even knowing what Bruce has gone through between those seasons. Along with that, you can also immediately tell how much Bruce has learned about how the world works, how Gotham works, and how many life lessons he's learned as well. Bruce found a way to command the emotions in that meeting and the attention of the entire board, whether they like it or not. The way Bruce fires back with a threat at his board members shows you how much he's learned about approaching serious conversations such as that one. It also shows you that he knows what type of work it takes to be in a powerful position in case a moment like a board member calling his bluff happens too. You can take all of that away just from looking at these two scenes back to back. This is all thanks to the amount of work David Mazouz put into his Bruce Wayne and the amount of extra depth that the small yet major changes in Bruce's mannerisms give Bruce Wayne. This is why I have such a bias towards David's younger Bruce Wayne. What he managed to achieve with this character at such a young age deserves so much appreciation and respect, which I guess leads me to finally answer the curiosity that I've yet to address. The reason I don't personally care to see David Mazouz take on the role of Bruce Wayne in the new DCU is simply that I just don't think he'd be a good fit. Now, you might be thinking, how can that possibly be the case if I just spent all this time praising his overall acting of Bruce Wayne? The problem, in my opinion, is that David's iteration of Bruce Wayne falls far more in line with the Batverse or even the Jokerverse tonally. David found a way to put on such a stellar display of a Bruce Wayne whose trauma impacted him and shaped him into the caped crusader we know as Batman. Fortunately, I just don't see the DCU doing a similar take for their Batman, since the Batman is currently diving into a fairly similar take with Pattinson. For what it's worth, I'm not saying the DCU's Batman won't be stoic, won't have trauma to deal with, and won't command a presence that naturally draws people's respect and attention. But what I'm saying is that this new upcoming iteration of Bruce Wayne will likely be far more lighthearted tonally. To me, that's perfectly fine because the DC universe will likely manage to dive into darker topics or themes. If that's the case, I don't see David Mazouz managing to take this role again and do something even better than what he's already achieved in Gotham. Now, there's a legitimate conversation to be had if DC woke up one day and decided that they wanted to do 3 different Batman with 3 different takes in 3 different cinematic universes. One in the new DCU, one in the Batverse, and of course, one in the Jokerverse. Why? It's because I could easily see David Mazouz being able to shine in a cinematic universe that spends a lot of time highlighting trauma, what a gritty yet realistic Gotham would look like in the real world, and discussing darker and realistic topics that the DCU or Batverse might not spend time on. I could easily see David being able to play a Batman that isn't entirely defined by his trauma because he's gone through the healing process and so much growth that he now uses his past to be the hero Gotham needs. That could absolutely work in the Jokerverse, and it'd be far more fitting because he could easily draw inspiration from Gotham and the Batman to try to do something different but also feel like it's building upon what he's already done. However, since I don't think DC is crazy enough to actually do 3 different Batman and 3 different cinematic universes, I just don't think I'd ever get the satisfaction of seeing what David Mazouz could do in the Jokerverse with a much bigger budget, better writers, and notably a much better Batsuit, cause what they made for the finale episode of Gotham was simply not good enough. As a Gotham fan, talking about this topic felt pretty important to me for a multitude of reasons. For one, I know how much people want more Gotham content from me, and I thought this fun and hypothetical discussion would satisfy a lot of those people. Secondly, I feel like since a lot of people might not have this discussion in mind, it'd be fun to discuss it and dive into it because I'd be able to really sell people on the strengths and weaknesses of these 2 actors. Thirdly, it's just fun talking about hypothetical discussions like this, even if it's nothing more than just appreciating what Cameron and David achieved in Gotham. As to where my opinion stands on this question, I think it's fairly obvious. Cameron Monaghan would absolutely be an exciting casting in the DCU, while David Mazouz would be far more fitting for a Batman or Bruce Wayne that exists in the Jokerverse. Naturally, this leaves me with one last question for you, the viewer. Would you like to see DC Studios use Gotham's David Mazouz and Cameron Monaghan for the DCU? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments down below.